Eleanor's steps had slowed over the years. At 72, her once brisk stride through the neighborhood had softened into short, measured walks to the mailbox or the garden gate. The familiar route she used to take along the river path, past the towering oaks and the old stone bridge, was now a memory she revisited from the comfort of her porch. The truth was, walking had become more of a chore than a pleasure. But rather than mourn this loss, Eleanor found herself embracing 5 new rituals that filled her days with purpose and meaning, even as her steps grew fewer. The first thing Eleanor did was turn to her books. For decades, novels and biographies had been her quiet companions, but with more time at home and fewer walks outside, she turned reading into a deliberate practice. She set a cozy reading nook by the window, a spot that caught the morning sun and gave her a view of her front garden. She worked her way through classics she had always meant to read but never had time for: Tolstoy, Austen, and Baldwin. Her world expanded inwardly, her imagination treading landscapes that her legs no longer could. Sometimes she read aloud to herself, savoring the weight of each word, feeling a connection to characters who navigated the complexities of life and love just as she did. Reading became a gentle rebellion against the narrowing of her physical world. Next, she reignited her connection with old friends and family. Long phone calls, handwritten letters, and even video calls with her grandchildren became a central part of her routine. She realized that her slowing pace gave her the gift of time to truly listen. Conversations stretched beyond the usual pleasantries, diving into stories from her youth, shared memories, and heartfelt advice. Her daughter, busy with work and raising children of her own, appreciated these moments of pause. Eleanor's voice became a comforting presence, her words a thread that stitched generations together. Even friends she hadn't spoken to in years were delighted to reconnect, reminiscing about their younger days with laughter that felt almost as rejuvenating as a long walk in the park. Eleanor's third focus was tending her indoor garden. The large vegetable patch behind her house had once been her pride, but the effort of bending and kneeling was now too much. Instead, she filled her sunroom with potted plants, succulents, herbs, and even a small lemon tree. She took pride in nurturing them, learning about their care, experimenting with cuttings, and propagating new shoots. She found joy in the tiny triumphs: a new sprig of mint, the first bloom of a violet. Each plant was a testament to resilience and growth, much like herself. Watering and tending the leaves became a meditative act, grounding her in the present and reminding her that even in stillness, life flourishes. The fourth habit Eleanor cultivated was daily stretching and gentle movement. Though her walks were limited, she refused to let her body become completely sedentary. Each morning, she followed a simple routine of stretching exercises, focusing on flexibility and balance. She discovered chair yoga videos online that she could follow along with, moving her arms in wide arcs, stretching her spine, and practicing controlled breathing. These movements not only eased the stiffness in her joints, but also gave her a sense of control over her body. She felt more alert, more connected to her physical self. Her routine, though modest, brought her peace and the quiet thrill of knowing she was still in charge of her well-being. Finally, Eleanor found herself embracing creative hobbies. She returned to her love of painting, dusting off the old set of watercolors that had been tucked away in the attic for years. At first, her hands trembled, the brushstrokes unsteady, but soon the familiar rhythm returned. She painted flowers from her garden, quiet scenes from her window, and abstract shapes inspired by her reading. Each painting was a celebration of color and form, a way to express feelings too vast for words. The process of creation became a balm against the creeping isolation that sometimes accompanied her reduced mobility. She even shared her artwork with friends and family, sending them as gifts or postcards, leaving a piece of herself in each gesture. Though she walked less than she used to, Eleanor discovered that these 5 practices didn't just fill her days, they enriched them. She realized that movement wasn't the only measure of vitality. Her mind, her relationships, her creativity, and her self-care could carry her forward in ways she hadn't imagined. Walking had once been her freedom, her exploration. Now she explored inwardly, crafting a life that was just as rich and expansive, even with slower steps. On a late afternoon in early spring, Eleanor sat on her porch, a cup of tea in hand, the fading sun casting long shadows over the yard. She looked out at the path she used to walk, the stone bridge in the distance, the familiar oak trees standing tall. And she smiled, not with regret, but with a quiet understanding that life after 70 wasn't about moving fast or far. It was about moving meaningfully, with grace and purpose, even if the steps were fewer.